Some people only show respect once they find out who you are. Sad, right? But it's true. And that kind of behavior is more common than it should be. Imagine walking into a place you helped build, only to be treated like a burden. That's exactly what happened to Daniel. No status, no name tag on his forehead. He walked into the restaurant like any regular customer and was ignored as if he were nobody. Little did they know they were dismissing one of the very people responsible for that business existing. The story you're about to hear might shake your beliefs because it reveals an uncomfortable truth. Many people only treat others well when they think they have something to gain. But when someone ordinary shows up, the disrespect becomes glaringly obvious. And the worst part? Stories like this happen every day at companies, schools, stores, even inside our homes. What makes this one different is how it ends. Because this time, justice showed up in a way no one saw coming. Swift, firm, and with a live audience. This isn't just another story about disrespect. It's a lesson in character, humility, and the quiet power of those who simply observe. And if you think you've seen plot twists before, brace yourself, because this one will have you reflecting for days. After all, who are you when no one's watching? Daniel has always believed that a person's true nature is revealed when they don't know they're being observed. That's why, when he decided to visit Carter's diner without telling anyone, he dressed plainly, left his status at the door, and entered like just another customer. He wanted to feel the atmosphere with his own eyes, hear the sounds of the kitchen, notice the details at the front desk, without anyone realizing he was one of the key figures behind those very stories. And that, my friend, takes courage. The courage to be invisible in a place where your voice normally carries weight. In a world where so many strive to be seen before being heard, that kind of attitude is almost revolutionary. Daniel could have called ahead, announced his visit, asked for the best table. But he didn't. He chose to be the ordinary man, to test whether the treatment given to strangers matched the one reserved for the important people. And that teaches something powerful. If you want to truly understand the essence of a place or a person, you need to learn how to observe in silence. How many times have you pretended not to know something, just to see who really does? What's most intriguing is that many great stories of transformation begin just like this, with someone pretending to be someone they're not, just to find out who the other person truly is. There's a hint of a social experiment in it, but also a touch of strategic humility. And let me tell you, if you thought this was going to be just another quiet dinner, you better hold on to that thought. What Daniel was about to experience had all the makings of a moment that could define a lifetime. Not just his, but others too. He had barely stepped through the door when Daniel noticed something was off. It wasn't the smell of the food or the decor. It was the indifferent gaze of the hostess, who acted too busy to even acknowledge his presence. One of those looks that goes right through you, as if you don't exist. And that, my friend, says far more about the character of the one doing the looking than about the one being ignored. It's easy to treat someone well when they show up in a suit and tie. But what about when it's just a regular person, like so many others in these untold stories of anonymity? While he waited, Daniel noticed that the waiters smiled at some people but didn't even glance in his direction. When service finally came, it was as dry as old wallpaper. The food hadn't even arrived yet, but indifference was already being served as an appetizer. It reminded me of an old lesson. The way we treat strangers reveals what we'd hide from the world if no one were watching. And let's be honest, who hasn't felt invisible in a place where they expected to be welcomed? And that's where wisdom shows up. Those who observe calmly can see beyond the surface. Daniel, though uncomfortable, remained steady. Instead of reacting, he chose to study that behavior like a scientist in a human lab. Because sometimes, the way we are treated in silence speaks louder than any well-rehearsed speech. And the most remarkable part is that, right there, in that cold environment, he would begin to uncover secrets that would later change not only that restaurant, but many hidden stories behind the counter. While the dish still hadn't arrived, Daniel found himself surrounded by a disturbing sound, not the clinking of silverware or the murmur of the dining room. It was the whispering of the staff, coming straight from the back, where the mask of politeness had already fallen off. Two voices mocked his appearance as if he were a walking joke. One of them, with an air of self-importance, even implied that he wouldn't be able to pay. And the laugh, oh, that thin, mocking laugh, cut deeper than any direct insult. This kind of behavior says a lot about a place's culture. When contempt becomes entertainment among colleagues, it's a clear sign that respect has slipped out the back door. And the curious thing is, it's not uncommon. It happens in companies, schools, bank lines, even in families. In many real-life stories, those who mock today are the ones exposed tomorrow, and usually in the most painful way. Because the universe has a sharp sense of justice, and it collects with interest what's been sown in scorn. But Daniel didn't react. He could have stood up, confronted them, revealed who he was. Instead, he chose to listen. Because there's a powerful strength in those who watch in silence. They carry a strategic advantage. One step back to take two forward. While others laughed at his supposed simplicity, he mentally recorded every word, every gesture. Little did they know they were building, brick by brick, one of the most revealing stories that restaurant would ever witness. Amid that scene of scorn and mockery, someone else was watching it all, quiet but alert. Sitting at a nearby table, Michael's daughter, the owner of the restaurant, recognized Daniel the moment he walked in. She didn't say a word, but her eyes followed every gesture, every omission, every wicked laugh the staff thought was hidden. And more than that, she recorded it. She used her phone as a shield and as evidence. A small gesture, but one with the impact of an avalanche in the stories yet to come. It's interesting to think how, so often, the big moments in life don't shout, they whisper. Michael's daughter understood that with rare wisdom. She could have stood up, stepped in, told them who he was. But she chose to let the facts unfold, knowing the truth hits harder when it's shown, not forced. In times when many talk too much and listen too little, the power of those who observe can become the greatest weapon. And here's the irony. While others displayed their arrogance, she was collecting proof. This part of the story teaches something valuable. The true ally is sometimes silent. Not every hero wears a cape or speaks loudly. Some simply hold a phone in their hand, waiting for the right moment. And this applies to life too. Who hasn't been saved by someone who was just there, quiet, waiting for the time to act? Whether it's a coworker who defends you behind the scenes or a friend who sees what you can't. The point is, someone is always watching. And when you least expect it, that witness changes everything. The night was nearing its end when the climax of the situation happened. Daniel, even after everything he had been through, stood up with dignity to pay the bill. And that's when the final blow came. The waiter, the same one who had laughed at him earlier, accused him of trying to leave without paying. As if he were a thief, as if he had no self-respect. The room fell silent. The discomfort hung in the air like heavy smoke. And it's in these moments that some stories become lifelong lessons. That was when Michael stepped in. The owner, the friend, the businessman who knew every corner of that restaurant and, upon seeing the scene, understood everything in a flash. His eyes didn't blink. He got straight to the point, demanded explanations, and without hesitation, revealed Daniel's true identity for everyone to hear. Right there, the game changed. Those who had mocked him minutes earlier now looked smaller than their own shadows. It's easy to show kindness when you know who you're dealing with. The real challenge is showing respect when you believe no one is watching. And that twist, that twist is the kind of turn we usually see in powerful stories. But this time, it happened in real life, with real people. It's living proof that truth may take its time, but when it arrives, it strikes like lightning. And what a pleasure it is to see justice show up unannounced, raw, real, and sharp. What no one expected was that, from that moment on, the masks would start to fall, one by one, and the consequences would come like a silent tsunami. When Michael showed the footage from the security cameras, and later what his own daughter had recorded, the silence turned into collective discomfort. The laughter vanished, eyes shifted, and smug smiles melted like wax under the sun. Every word said behind closed doors, every gesture of disdain, was now exposed. It was as if the universe had decided to hit play on a live episode of truth. And honestly, few stories carry a sense of justice as cinematic as this one. The staff involved were suspended immediately. No empty talk, no beating around the bush. Michael knew that, more important than protecting the restaurant's image, was honoring the core of what he believed in, respect and dignity. The decision was firm, and for that reason, applauded by every customer present. The truth, when defended with courage, has this effect. It inspires, corrects, and transforms. And every applause that day was more than support. It was a clear message. No one is above ethics, not even those hiding behind an apron. All of this shows that when the masks fall, what remains is raw character. And that's exactly where the construction of new stories begins. The kind that leaves marks, changes paths, and makes us rethink what we've been tolerating for the sake of convenience. Michael understood that poor behavior could no longer be treated as a one-time mistake. It was time to flip the switch, and he was just getting started. Because deep down, this storm would reveal much more than just disrespectful employees. After the storm came the decision that separates leaders from bosses. Michael publicly apologized to Daniel, not as a formality, but as a genuine act of humility. And more than just pretty words, he followed it with action. He invited Daniel himself to become the restaurant's customer experience consultant. A smart, human, and symbolic move. Because in the best stories, to make amends isn't just about fixing what was broken. It's about transforming what caused the break in the first place. And Michael went even further. He revamped the team's training and introduced a new policy. Dignity first. Simple, direct, and powerful. Every employee, from waiters to managers, came to understand that respect isn't a favor, it's the foundation. This goes for anyone running a business, leading a team, or even raising a family. Why not take a moment to revisit the values in your own home or company? It's worth putting into practice. Train empathy, encourage active listening, introduce human-centered dynamics. All of this changes the game and creates new stories of genuine connection. What happened there wasn't just a brand repositioning. It was a shift in consciousness. And you know what's most beautiful? Carter's Diner began to gain something money can't buy: purpose. That place, once known only for its food, became recognized for its transformation, for the courage to admit mistakes, and the sincere desire to do things differently. And Daniel, who had once walked in as a nobody, was now a central figure in building this new chapter. The news spread like wildfire, not just because of the unusual situation, but because of how it was handled. Carter's Diner stopped being just a culinary meeting point and became a symbol of reinvention and awareness. It made headlines, became a topic on local shows, and, of course, flooded social media with comments about respect and human dignity. Stories like this aren't common, and that's exactly why they make such a powerful impact when they do appear. Daniel became a constant presence in the daily life of the restaurant. He led trainings, observed customer service, and shared his experience to inspire other local businesses. More than teaching how to serve dishes, he taught how to serve people. And that, my friend, is a kind of value you won't find on the menu. Because when you understand that every customer carries their own stories, service gains soul, and the space comes to life. A simple good evening can change someone's entire day, and that's exactly what he made sure to show. And just like that, Carter's Diner entered a new era. Transformation became culture, empathy became policy, and respect, once selective, became the rule. Every meal served there now carried an extra ingredient: integrity. Daniel and Michael, now partners in purpose, proved that even the worst moments can become seeds for growth. But, of course, for that to happen, someone has to have the courage to act. Because the best stories only exist when someone refuses to accept failure as the final chapter. Now tell me, how many times have you judged someone by their appearance? How many times have you overlooked someone without knowing the story behind that tired face or those worn-out clothes? The truth is, everyone carries baggage, and only those who see with the heart can truly understand the weight each person bears. Daniel's case shows us that life always finds a way to give back in kind, and sometimes with interest. So, how about applying this lesson to your everyday life? Be kind to the cashier at the supermarket, the delivery person, the quiet coworker. Every interaction is a chance to write new stories, and you get to choose whether you'll be the hero or the villain in them. The world already has too many people trying to look important. What it really needs is more people willing to be human. And that's what sets apart those who just go through life from those who truly transform the lives of others. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever been judged before people even knew who you really were? Share it here in the comments. And if you believe that respect isn't based on appearance, but on principle, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications Because here, every week, we bring you more stories that awaken awareness, inspire change, and empower those who truly want to grow.